Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new Focal Point podcast with Angela Marafino. In order to continue evolving as a forward-thinking industry that accepts others as they are, we need to hear more stories from diverse individuals regarding their struggles and successes throughout their careers in technology. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
My name is Angela Marafino, and this is Focal Point. Today we have Andrew Seligson. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to be here.
So glad to have you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So you got my last name right, which is a struggle for most folks. I'm very sure we've worked together before. So yeah, my name's Andrew Seligson. I am currently a machine learning engineer down here in Tampa, working as a contractor in the sort of defense community. And yeah, really, I've known Angela for quite a while, but we've reconnected recently, and I'm really excited to kind of be back getting your circle. Working
Andrew,
on
I always love talking to you. Honestly, like every time you're working on something new, and it just usually blows my mind, and I'm like, what's this guy going to do next, right? So, let's back up a little bit and say, so we were both in the cybersecurity boot camp together, but that was definitely not the start and or even maybe middle of your overall career in life. So like, how did you get there? And then maybe, I don't know if you want to start with that or if you want to start with what you originally went to school with. Before you even answer, I'm going to read what your LinkedIn says. So if you go to LinkedIn, you look at Andrew's profile, it says he has an undergraduate degree in religious studies and music. That's the first one. Then it says international conflict resolution, international relations and affairs. Then there is peace, linguistic, comparative, and related language studies and services. Then we have computer and information system security, information assurance. Then there's another notable one, the Arabic language and literature. They're all notable, by the way. And then a master's of arts, MA in international relations and affairs at Tufts University. So, I mean, I don't even know if we have a podcast episode long enough to talk about everything you've done, but how did you get where you are today? You have such a diverse background.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, happy to go as deep as I can into this stuff, because I have fallen in love with kind of some of the things I get to do, kind of, and that's sort of like I will say kind of like my main sort of like goal in all of this is to always follow my heart and to sort of go where my passion leads me, and I found that as long as I'm doing that, like everything else kind of falls into place. And so I've been very lucky to sort of have opportunities fall kind of into my lap that have kind of also supported me in doing that. So like really, really excited to talk about all those things. So I'll kind of walk all the way back to 2011, which is about 10 years ago, when I was thinking about going to colleges, and kind of start from there. So I went to a place called Oberlin College, and I, at the time, was really interested in like music and guitar and philosophy. I was kind of like the music plus philosophy kid at Oberlin, and it was kind of, and Oberlin, for folks who are listening are not aware, it's kind of this liberal arts program kind of in the middle of Ohio that also has a really good conservatory there. So I ended up going there to pursue a degree in religious studies and also kind of do quite a bit of music stuff and music composition as part of the conservatory. And so while I was there, I sort of realized that I really wanted to work in kind of conflict spaces. The reason for that actually was, I was going through my studies and kind of was enjoying things, but I didn't quite feel super like sort of like alive with sort of what I was studying. But actually, it was funny enough. I think it was Michelle Obama who came and did our, or the year before me, she came and did kind of our commencement address. And one thing she said that recalling, it kind of really stuck with me over the next few years after, and kind of that year especially, was like, we're all really good people. We all have really good intentions, and we like study these important things. But it's really important that you kind of you take all those wonderful ideals and sort of translate them into a space that like doesn't share those ideals, and kind of be like an important, like an influence in spaces that are harsher or more difficult than the ones that you're used to. Point being, like, don't sort of sit in your kind of like bubble. Make sure to go out into the world and take those wonderful things you've learned and implement them like in tough environments. That always stuck with me. And I kind of forgot about it until you had just asked, but that had always been like a big thing on my mind. So from there, I realized that like I wanted to go not just like study philosophy or study religion. I wanted to take those things out into the world. So I got really interested in international relations. And because I have a Jewish background, actually, I realized, like, okay, what are the kind of the things around me that I can like move towards? And one of the things that I was always interested in, both from a religious perspective and also from like kind of political perspective, was actually Israel. Israel being the Jewish state for it's controversial, but kind of it is kind of a Jewish state for the most part, demographically, and also, for different reasons. And so I realized that I wanted to kind of work in that space and kind of figure out how to implement these wonderful ideals into that kind of domain. So into the Israeli sort of space I went, but I also with my guitar, I should say.
Of course.
So I graduated Oberlin. While I was at Oberlin, I'd written a big Lord of the Rings symphony, because I was a big fan of Lord of the Rings. That was one of my big music projects kind of in my other life that I was working on. And so the first thing I wanted to do when I graduated was just like put everything else aside. I needed to produce this like Lord of the Rings symphonic opera type of thing. And so I went to New York with like my best friend at the time to produce this big Lord of the Rings thing. And so I did that and kind of got an orchestra together and did like this performance at a place called the Dynamical Center. And yeah, it was really fun. I had a great performance, had a great time, recorded it, like all these things. It was so much fun. And then a few weeks before that, like I like applied to the UN, just like to the Israeli mission to the UN. Didn't think about it at all. I was like, okay, I'll just send in applications. Like, let's get on LinkedIn, send things out there, like whatever. And then the few days after the performance, I realized that like I had left my phone at home. And I was going to the library. So I take the train back all the way back home. I get my phone, I turn it on. There's this voicemail from this number I did not recognize. And it was, so I like listen to the voicemail. It's like, oh, hello, kind of this, I'm not gonna do Israeli accent, but it was someone in some, kind of thick Israeli accent saying, oh, we received your resume. We are from the mission of Israel to the United Nations. We are very interested in interviewing you for a speechwriting internship at the UN. Said, oh my, okay, here we go. So yeah, I kind of ended up interviewing for the job, and it was actually a very funny experience. So I go into the interview, and I never really been in like a secure sort of thing before. I mean, I was totally intimidated. And it was my first job. I mean, it was my first opportunity to really do something in a professional context, like other than internships in college and that type of thing. So I show up and I kind of go up into the building, and it turns out that I'm interviewing with the chief of staff of the mission, like some of the head delegates, like some like the really impressive people. I didn't really know, but they're like, yes, I am such and such impressive person. I'm like, okay, I'm Andrew. I play guitar.
I'm Andrew.
Yeah. And so I ended up talking to him a little bit, and I was so nervous. I was almost hyperventilating. I was getting so nervous. And I managed to eke out somewhere in this, hey, like I come to New York because I wanted to like write this symphony, and like I produced it. And they're like, oh, you wrote a symphony. Tell me some more about that. And then I finally exhale and talk about, myself in a more natural way, and actually like try, I had a nice sort of experience with them. And then I think I kind of walk out and I say, okay, there's no way I'm going to get this. Like, I totally just botched that, but like, at least they know I'm a musician or something. I don't know. But then I get an email a few hours later saying, oh, we want you to do this sort of writing assignment and, go deeper into the process with us. So long story short, ended up working out. I'll kind of come up for air a little bit. I ended up, while I was there, working at the, not doing speechwriting, but actually working at the United Nations Security Council on behalf of the mission, which is like if you're not familiar with the Security Council, it's where all the big decisions get made. So I was kind of in the room where it happened. And yeah, it was a very, very abrupt transition to go from writing music and doing all these things, that lifestyle, into the lifestyle of like doing all these serious things. So while I was there, I'll say, and this is kind of how I ultimately got into more technical spaces. I sat in on a negotiation in the Fifth Committee, and which is the committee that kind of oversees the budget, procurement, acquisition, finance, those types of things. And I think I might have told you the story actually when I first came to Evolve, because it was very inspirational, and it actually got me really into cybersecurity. someone who had come in as part of the kind of Israeli sort of space and wanted to kind of work on cyber, kind of do like a cyber project for peacekeeping purposes. It was like a really cool technology. Again, it's to support peacekeeping missions, kind of showed what kind of Israel could do for peace building things in the world.
Okay.
And they got into this really interesting negotiation, kind of because Israel doesn't always get along with folks at the UN
Sure.
for geopolitical reasons. So, but they brought in this person who was kind of like cyber expert, like really deep technical subject matter expert in that space. And they ended up going into this deep negotiation with the technical expert on the other side of the negotiation. But basically what happened was they had this really like probably 10 to 15 minute long discussion about like technical details of whatever project they were trying to get through in front of all these diplomats. And everyone's jaw was sort of dropped like, oh my God, these guys are so impressive. They're so cool. Like they really know their stuff. And it was actually kind of beautiful because like it was in the technical details that they actually really got along. You could see that these people from these different communities and spaces and these kind of, geopolitically different spaces actually really were able to connect on the technical details, and it kind of brought peace into the room, which was the most like as a peace-oriented person and wanting to work in that space. I was like, wow, actually, like not only is it super interesting from a technical perspective, but it also brings people together in a weird way. And so I ended up, that was kind of my big takeaway from the UN.
Right, sure.
So yeah, I ended up leaving the UN and wanted to set up my next thing. And I wanted to go to Israel because I think I'd only been once, and it was like a while back. And I wanted to actually like do not just what I studied, but also kind of become more part of the community and learn about kind of what people experience there on kind of both sides of conflict, that type of thing. And so, yeah, so I went over to Israel and actually was working in the foreign ministry as part of kind of this fellowship program. The post in the foreign ministry was as kind of like a cybersecurity fellow / researcher.
Okay.
So I was working with some of their diplomats there as kind of doing kind of policy and legal research. But as part of that, I really wanted to get more technical, kind of building off that experience I'd kind of seen from kind of at the UN, that really kind of those really impressive people doing that negotiation. I wanted to be kind of just like them, but kind of more in a policy and legal space. And so it was like doing a lot of technical research on like reading a bunch of books on networking and like getting more comfortable with the CLI and Python, kind of like self-teaching, kind of a lot of like those types of skills while also doing policy research in cyber.
Okay.
So I was doing that for a while. And I kind of found like during that process that like the respect was building for people who were truly technical.
Sure.
And I always kept it in the back of my mind, like, okay, so it's one thing to write about it and kind of talk the talk, but you also got to learn to walk the walk. So I was kind of hungry for that experience. And I ended up sort of going down that route as I kind of kept on going kind of in the foreign ministry space. And then I kind of completed my post there. I was also doing like a bunch of operas on the side, which I could talk about a little later. I was like writing operas, doing those types of things.
Okay.
And so I'll go into that a little bit later. But then I ended up actually contacting someone over in Jordan, as as part of this kind of like peacekeeping or peacenik sort of urge, in addition to the cyber stuff, I also really wanted to get experience kind of on the other side of the conflict. So as I say, kind of always trying to follow my heart while also doing all these other types of things to kind of support kind of what I do. So there was a really interesting, kind of very passionate kind of doctor who was working in Jordan who wanted to work kind of with kind of American folks, Jewish folks, even Israelis, kind of on helping to solve the kind of this refugee crisis and also kind of elements of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, kind of from his vantage point as a doctor. And he knew I had some technical experience, had a little bit of some data chops, some networking chops, and kind of wanted to bring me over there to kind of work on those issues, get things from his perspective, and kind of just like kind of build a cool team over there. And he ran an organization called the Jordan Health Aid Society. So I went over there, kind of got assigned to one of his teams, kind of doing cyber-y type of things, more like networking, but ultimately in support of like different programs he wanted to do to like help protect refugees and support people, kind of like work on peace initiatives, but kind of more from a data / cyber perspective.
Okay.
But yeah, it was probably one of the most interesting experiences I had because I did not speak Arabic, or I should say I didn't speak it that well. I'd done a little bit when I was in Jerusalem, but so I was picking up Arabic and also, kind of learning the language and the culture while also kind of doing some technical work, while also doing some kind of peace related work too. So spent my time there, learned a whole lot, actually experienced quite some really profound things as far as what people go through there, what they do for peace, and like how much, faith we should put in people of the region and not just kind of like the high level political stuff. And so that was a very kind of also like a heartwarming experience to see how deep people feel about the kind of peace in that region. So then I went all the way back to Kansas City, and it was at that time that I met Angela. If I can kind of call out to Angela really quick, because I had not quite scratched that itch related to the urge of wanting to get technical, kind of with cyber. And that was that time I contacted kind of a recruiter at Evolve Security. And one of the terms, and I was kind of looking at different boot camps, kind of how do I get good in this space? And one of the things he said that I'd always thought to myself was like, look, you don't want to just talk the talk, you want to learn how to walk the walk. And here's how we're going to get you there, and kind of laid out a plan to learn about and practice the technologies that like are so important in cyber, ranging from SIEM technologies to networking to command line to whatever. And so I got really into kind of into the boot camp, and that was in the context in which I met Angela. So this is an important detail for later, by the way. So don't miss this. Who had actually referred me to a show called Mr. Robot, if you remember that, which became a very important show for later, which I'll get into in a second. So while I was there, I got an internship doing as a SOC analyst, security operations center analyst for those who are kind of in the security space. Doing different kind of research and kind of technical analysis in that role. And so that was kind of like my first gig in this space. And I would go to Angela with all my problems, like, can you please solve my problems for me? And then I would go back. I'm not to embarrass you.
No, I'm not embarrassed. Yeah, you did.
I should be. No. So and while I was doing that, actually, I realized that like everything that I was learning a lot, but I also realized that there was a lot I didn't know. When you're in the SOC and you're kind of doing different things, you're getting a lot of logs. I mean, that was like the biggest thing. You have so much data to get through, ranging from logs to endpoint logs to network logs to whatever, and that's kind of your visibility into your network. And I realized that like this is not possible to defend this network right now, like the way we are, just like a bunch of human beings doing this on our own. We can't do it, like at least not at the scale of maybe this company can do it in a limited, in some way. But we can't necessarily do that at the scale of the industry. So we need help. And that was when I ultimately realized I wanted to kind of work in machine learning and get more into the AI space, which is what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. So I was doing that. And I also knew that, I had an interest in going into kind of, the defense national security world. And I also knew that Arabic was a big focus for folks doing cyber related things, just because, we cooperate with folks in that space. There's also threats coming from that space. It's a complex space overall, but learning Arabic and kind of working at the intersection of those two things is quite helpful. And so I decided, okay, I'm gonna get my technical experience, can I get that together? And then I'm also gonna be I want to be a dual threat, so I'm gonna get my Arabic experience too.
Yeah.
So I ended up.
And you were always like, well, I mean, I'm studying Arabic tonight, and so I'm gonna work on this cybersecurity stuff, but also like I have Arabic, and I'm like, cool. I don't have Arabic. Good luck.
Yeah. I do remember that, and I would send you guys funny things like in the chat in Arabic or like in dialect, whatever. Yeah, that was fun. So I ended up going to Wisconsin actually to study Arabic in like an intensive program to kind of help build those chops. And then finally, I went to a very special community called the Tufts Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, which if any of you folks are thinking about grad school, I would very much encourage you to go there. It's a really cool program. And so I ended up going there for 2 years and studying law and diplomacy. But there's also this engineering school that I kind of took some classes in to kind of keep my chops together as far as technical things. And so while I was there, I was studying security studies with kind of a few of the professors there who were very experienced, really knew a lot about this space. And I kind of came in as the young gunner with a technical experience, kind of, and a lot of my peers also, were more policy or those types of things. So I was able to find sort of my competitive advantage, kind of, be the technical guy in a policy space, which was also very fun and kind of invigorating. And so we did a bunch of competitions while we were there. Like if you're familiar with Cyber 912, perhaps.
Sure.
So we ended up, so we did Cyber 912. We actually won Cyber 912 one of the years.
I remember, yeah.
Remember how I said there was an important detail about Mr. Robot?
Yeah.
The reason for that was because our team name was none other than F Society, which for lovers of the show will know that Mr. Robot is sort of, Mr. Robot F Society. They're, that's like kind of the big. I don't want to give too much away. That's why I'm looking.
It's relevant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you winning, and I remember seeing F Society team won this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very invigorating. We ended up doing 3 or 4 other competitions. We won all of them actually, which is really fun. We did one with the
gosh.
National Security Innovation Network, the DIU. We did one
Yeah.
with the UN, which is really fun, building on like a threat intelligence platform. One was like a drone swarm. So just like different types of technologies, got to touch so many different types of things, and ultimately just like went crazy with like all these tech things I get to do, and then like write policy papers in addition. So it was a fun time. And then that ultimately finally led to where I'm doing now. So right now I'm a machine learning engineer at United States Special Operations Command, which kind of touches a lot of different areas, but I get to do a lot of like research into machine learning and how that applies to like warfighting, basically. That was a lot. I'm so sorry. That was a lot, but again, I hope that gives some insight into what I've been up to.
Don't apologize. I invited you on this podcast to talk about yourself.
Okay, sweet.
So you knew the assignment. What about so you also, do you want to talk about Twin Raven? Can we talk about that? Is that
Oh yeah, we can talk about Twin Raven.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. I remember Twin Raven was a fun experience. So Twin Raven actually came out of one of the hackathons we had done with the Department of Defense. So me and like probably 5, 6 other students from the Tufts Fletcher School, and also a few engineers, found out about this competition that the Department of Defense was putting out there called the Dense Urban Environment Challenge, or like the DUE, I think is what we called it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the point of the DUE was like, okay, propose to us a technology that can help basically first responders, special operations forces navigate a dense urban environment, and thinking about like different kind of operational scenarios kind of in the environment, like a hostage scenario or like a building collapse or these types of things where we need people to be able to like figure out and like what's going on in that space and have like general situational awareness of kind of what's going on around them.
Okay.
And so we got together this team to kind of, propose and develop kind of a proof of concept and solution for that problem set. And we ended up coming up with a thing called the Loki system, which was kind of funny. Kind of, we had to do the Norse, reference being that we do work in the DoD space.
Right.
And so we ended up providing this thing called the Loki system, which was sort of like an aggregated sort of sensor fusion technology, which you would kind of put on a unmanned aerial device like a UAV, which could kind of flow and kind of move alongside kind of special operations forces or other types of folks in that space, like first responders, whoever, like even law enforcement who are like trying to save people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And like give them situational awareness about what's going on and kind of going on in that space.
Okay.
And we ended up winning. Actually, we had a really cool experience doing like a pitch, like a business development, all these things.
Uh-huh.
And so we got like a $15,000 grant to keep on developing things and kind of like moving forward and kind of building a business out of it.
Okay.
And so we ended up calling our business that we kind of spun out of it Twin Raven, some more Norse mythology stuff, or that type of thing.
Sure.
And so we building up the company for a while as we were all sort of in school together, and kind of we're hoping to kind of continue it forward. But because we were all sort of graduating and kind of all had different plans coming up with either going in the military or going into like a few folks went to Google. Mm-hmm. We ultimately ended up disbanding and kind of saying, hey, great experience, but we kind of we kind of want to go this other route. But it was kind of like the high level summary is it was kind of like a startup that we built that was kind of working with the Department of Defense on those types of things.
Very cool. So
yeah.
I just want to say that listeners, so this guy who just said everything he just said also wrote, like he said earlier, Lord of the Rings Symphony. So you can definitely be whoever you want to be. I have listened to the Lord of the Rings Symphony that Andrew composed, and it's amazing. I specifically want to call out at the 6-minute 30-second mark, there's a epic shred, and Andrew is the one playing guitar, and it rocks.
Thank you.
It's just so good.
Appreciate that.
And then I'm like, this is the same guy. Like physically, and how did you do all these things? Like if I didn't know what you look like, if I had never seen you, I'd be like, you got to be like 50 years old, right? Because you've accomplished so much already. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like you've got a TEDx talk you did at Tufts about symphonies. And I'm just trying to figure out like where you did all that. But I know you did talk about too, like in your TEDx, like, right? Like you didn't sleep sometimes, which isn't great, right? Like we all need that, and you like self-care and stuff, but you made it work. You look well rested at this point.
Surviving, doing my best.
So I don't know, like your extreme passion for music. I mean, I have continuously, since I've gotten into cybersecurity and the technical field, met a lot of people who have like some type of creative background, no matter what it is, right? Some like liberal arts degrees and interests, including myself, right? So I think it's phenomenal. So during all of this, like the past 3 things that you mentioned career-wise, have you continued to like play music and write and compose?
Of course,
Like,
of course. Okay. Yeah. No. It's the train must the train must continue, must go on,
right.
or rather the show must go on, I should say. And so yeah, I've been doing quite a bit of composing actually. So I did the big Lord of the Rings symphony, which is really fun, and kind of finally recorded that like for real down here in Tampa recently, which is really like a very like I was like, wow, like I still got it, I can still do this.
Sure.
Actually, I another fun opera I got to do was a kind of like an homage to like Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin called Duel with the Devil, which was kind of like a 1-act like rock opera that was mainly for me to show off what I could do like on the guitar and like technically with like composition, but also like kind of like a fun like kind of feminist rock opera about like the fabled daughter of Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, who had to fight with the devil for her soul after accidentally selling it in like this like stupid deal. It was a fun time. And then actually did another more serious opera actually that premiered at Juilliard, which was really fun a few years ago about like Black Lives Matter. And so that was in collaboration with really awesome tenor named Josh Blue, who kind of commissioned me to do that piece along with kind of 5 playwrights from kind of the Black community, kind of tell the story of like kind of the Black liberation kind of story in the United States. And so I was very, out of those 2 projects, I think that one was called Break Your Chains, by the way. I thought Break Your Chains was like a huge honor, kind of be involved in that. And also like for me to learn about like as I said, kind of worked in the Israeli space and kind of also worked with Palestinians, that type of thing, but also gave me opportunity to learn like on the home front, like what people of color, Black folks kind of experience, like both in the arts, as well as classical and that type of thing, and just kind of across the board. So yeah, that was like a really, really kind of interesting experience, really meaningful, I think was the big thing, like really learned a lot. So did that, was also playing in a bunch of like cover bands and like rock bands and jazz trios, these types of things. So continuing to kind of keep the guitar up. And also I think most recently actually got a kind of a fun little commission with a harp player who is working with the Illinois Philharmonic. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of keep that going. So doing like this kind of arrangement and composition of some harp dances. That's kind of ongoing, and hopefully should be able to have that out the door in the next year. So keep if you're listening, keep your ears open for kind of a harp concerto coming up. So really excited about that too.
Yeah. That sounds amazing, and I know we'll have like links to your YouTube and social media accounts.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Attached to the podcast, so for anybody that wants to find out what's going on with Andrew coming up, they'll be there. So, like, if you meet someone at a party or something, I don't know when you would have time to go to a party, but if you meet someone, how do you like, I don't think there's any quick way to say, like, how do you introduce you say, I'm a musician, I'm a composer, I work in technology. How do you pick one, or do you just rotate? I would just choose a different one.
I just make stuff. No, just kidding. No, honestly, the way to do that, like, and actually, kind of a good life lesson that I've learned over the years is like just ask lots of good, like kind of what you're doing now, like just ask lots of good questions for people, and that will like enrich you, And so I even though like I get to do some interesting things, like I feel passionate about the things I get to do. I also feel that like other people also have very rich, like incredible stories. And one of the reasons I like I don't sleep is because like I've been surrounded by some really inspired, passionate like people who are like just going after things and like really living out their mission in like really amazing ways. Like I think of like Dr. Jalouni out in kind of who I was working with in Jordan, kind of the doctor I referred to, who like was so incredible and like worked day and night to support refugees. Like there's so many people like that, like all around the world who are also living out these like really like cool missions. And so I feel my responsibility is to live out my mission, and also, and as part of that, like get to know different people who are doing that, because like asking why people are doing those things, understanding their motivations, these things is like always like enriches me and wants to make me go further in what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Sure. So. Yeah, I do feel like over the time I've known you, you have been someone who is, I don't want to say constantly asking questions, but you ask a lot of important questions, and I don't think you're ever afraid that it's going to be a stupid question. It doesn't matter what it is, right? You just really want to understand people and processes.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that about you, right? Because it definitely is one way to learn, and you can't find out, right, what the goal is or someone's mission unless you ask. That's a great
and
point.
it's also like part of going back to like Jewish culture, like this thing called chutzpah, which is sort of like that like loving disrespect of boundaries sometimes.
Sure.
I mean that in a kind of an endearing way about, not an indictment at all. But it's kind of like the idea like, oh, I want to like get to know you. Like let's and you can say that to like the ambassador to the UN, or you could say that to your buddy in class, So it's like it's that kind of like total like kind of disregard sometimes of social norms, but that kind of ultimately with like good intention. So absolutely. I think that's kind of served me well. And I also link back to kind of like my Jewishness and kind of like what I bring to the table as like in that respect,
So, I keep joking about like, I don't know how you got anything done. I'm going to assume that you're pretty good at like organizing your schedule and you stick to it and things like that. I mean, are you?
No. It's one of those things where I kind of go back also, I hope I'm not sounding too retro, but like I kind of go back to what I said at the beginning was like, if I'm always trying to follow my heart and kind of follow my passion, and my schedule sort of falls into place after that. And actually, that's a really good quote that I heard from a friend at Tufts, actually, always stuck with me, which was, don't prioritize your schedule your priorities.
Okay.
And I think that was like the best advice I ever heard.
I like that.
I kind of realized that like, there's all these people, you'll see them on the street, like who always have like their phones on them, like have their earpiece in, they look so important. They're doing all these important things. They don't have time for you ever. I never want to be that person. I want to have time for everyone and everything, and I never want to say no. So I
believe you.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I believe that from you.
One thing I always kind of bothered me about certain things is like when people like put themselves in a position of like power or authority over someone like an arbitrary way. It goes back to my peacenik roots as well. And when people are sort of like don't have time for you or don't ask about you or like don't ask good questions, these things like it. I don't think that's like the end game of finding success in your career. I feel like success in your career should bring you into like a mission space and kind of so you can contribute to that mission, not that you can personally benefit or feel important in some arbitrary way, And I think, if anyone's listening, like there is, and you are like that, there is definitely space for you to find success, I hope that means something.
I agree. I definitely like that about the calendar. I think that describes me as well. Like I put things on there. If it's extremely important, I can't move it. I'm not going to miss it for anything. It is red and like nothing else is getting scheduled. And then I kind of work my way around that. But the same, right, is like I do want to make time for everybody. I know sometimes it isn't possible, but I genuinely do want to do that.
Yeah.
And people that have worked with me know that. They're like, how do you do all the things? I'm like,
yeah, and I also think it's about like staying kind of hungry and humble. I think is a good way to put it. It's like if you were like, and I think another part of it is like not taking the people in your life for granted. Mm-hmm. So like if I feel like again if you want to make time for something or someone or something, like you can do it. You might be kind of painful sometimes. Like okay, I'll do it, but then you show up and it's fun, or like and it means something to someone.
Absolutely.
So like that hungry attitude will also kind of like a good way to sort of orient yourself. Yeah.
Anyways, absolutely. Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. Okay. What is a technology or project that you may be working on, or both, that you're excited about right now?
One of the things I've been really interested in lately is a concept called a dynamical system. Are you familiar with that by any chance?
I haven't heard that.
So good. So we can start from scratch.
Yes, tell me all about it.
So I'll give you a little bit of backstory on the concept and then kind of go into it.
Okay.
So a dynamical system, kind of straight off the bat, is a system that changes over time.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, so imagine like. Actually, I think it's important to define kind of what a system is actually before I kind of go into that.
Sure.
So a system is something that has a state space, and a state space is like a potential configurations. The way I often try to explain dynamical systems is starting off with a very simple game, and that game is rock, paper, scissors. Okay. So rock, paper, scissors is an example of dynamical system because it has a state space, and dynamical systems by definition are things which have a state space. But what is a state space? A state space is a configuration of a system. So think of, for example, you think of rock, paper, scissors. that has a state space of 9. Because there are, if the two people are playing rock, paper, scissors, there's 9 ways they can potentially play the game. There's like 9 configurations of that game, 9 configurations of that system. Therefore, it's as a state space of 9. When it comes to more complex systems, we can expand out that concept and think of the game like chess, which has I think like 10 to the 40 configurations, meaning that the state space is like gigantic. It's absurd how many ways you can play the game of chess.
But it's still one.
Yeah, and so it's a massive state space.
Okay.
Even those massive state spaces do not compare to what dynamical systems are. Mainly because there is a time element to dynamical systems. So if you can imagine like chess evolving, chess evolves over time and it's dynamical in some ways, but it's also limited. It doesn't like there's no like it's not like the weather where you have like there's the weather is continuous, it's infinite, like it can take on so many different configurations because there's so many variables at play, whereas chess is a constrained game.
Sure.
So dynamical systems basically are these systems which have like these chaotic features or have a lot of variables, a state space which is constantly moving, evolving, and changing. And they're just crazy. They're just crazy, these crazy systems which are really hard to understand. The cool thing about dynamical systems, though, is that we can actually model them. Like we can actually come up with technologies which help us understand how they will behave in real time.
Sure.
And it just so turns out that artificial intelligence and machine learning are really good techniques and practices for modeling and understanding dynamical systems. So actually, I learned this when I was working on the dense urban environment hackathon with like drones and those types of things, that in order to get a drone, for example, to fly indoors or get like certain technologies to work, you need to model them and have capabilities in them that can work with dynamical systems and work dynamically with their environment. And so think of, if people are familiar with the world of machine learning, kind of and how that might apply, there's this underlying idea behind machine learning, which is like, we are trying to get a machine or like a model or a system to interact with the world in a meaningful way. Like whether it's like a robot walking around or like a person or like a drone or just any sort of thing which is interacting with the real world. It has to like interact in an intelligent, meaningful way, and it has to get to what you would call sort of a ground truth status. So the data which represents the real world has to be accurate, and therefore has to be accurate, has to be of high quality, and the system has to interact with that in a meaningful way. I've really got to slow down because I'm really like, you know what I mean?
No, you're good.
Are you following?
I'm listening. Yes.
Okay, cool.
I'm just trying to like picture. So I'm just like picturing people like collecting that data and how much work would have to go into it.
Right. So with dynamical systems, like normally you have to you use Newtonian mechanics, like Newton's equations or Maxwell's equations or whatever equations to like deduce from first principle a priori, and just like figure out what the functional form is that's like causing the relationship between inputs and outputs. So for example, we can solve for like what the weather is going to be like in 2 days, because we have like these physical principles that we can like just work with by definition. Like you have your kind of input, and because you have like the underlying functional form, which is translating those inputs into outputs, you have the ability to like understand what's actually going to happen. That is actually, so that's true for certain systems, but for other systems, we actually don't know the underlying functional form. We don't know like what is causing these inputs to create these actual outputs. And so it turns out that machine learning as a practice, as sort of a discipline, is actually really, really good at doing that with data. And so the application of machine learning to dynamical systems like weather or human behavior or information or cybersecurity systems, which have very dynamical features, is super, super, super exciting, because it really is kind of like the most advanced applications of machine learning I'm noticing from like doing research and doing these things is applications of machine learning to dynamical systems. Does that sort of make sense overall?
Yeah, I think yes. It does make sense. But I'm like, okay, so it has the potential to make smart things smarter.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there any like real life examples of something that you said before, like weather prediction modeling of that, but like what would be the, I guess, Excel version of like, we've used a dynamic system in order to make this better. Like, how would it be better?
Right. Yeah. So I'm so glad you asked. So one of the one of the first applications I ever worked on was actually an application of machine learning to a dynamical system. I didn't realize at the time that it was doing that. But it was actually when I was working at Evolve, or working with Evolve at the kind of the cybersecurity kind of job that I had when I was working at Evolve.
Sure.
And the reason I say that is because it turns out that many of the information security systems that we work with, like security incident and event manager, a SIEM system, has very dynamical features to it. You have a lot of people accessing it, accessing common resources and tools.
Right.
That's producing a lot of logs, which kind of creates this environment which is very chaotic, and you're not exactly sure how it's going to behave, how people are going to behave, how the system is going to behave overall. As a result, like the system kind of becomes chaotic and unpredictable. So how are you supposed to, on defense, say if you're doing defensive operations, defend that system as a whole? It's a really interesting problem actually for machine learning and AI, like at a kind of meta level. There are lots of ways to solve that, and like with machine learning, and a lot of people focus on like supervised learning use cases, like neural networks, for example, on firewalls. I think Palo Alto firewalls, for example, does that kind of stuff for like detecting viruses, that type of thing. But I don't think anyone has taken like a broad sort of step back and said like, this entire information security system, or entire information system which we're trying to protect at the enterprise, how would we model the state space of that system? What would be like a meaningful state space of that system? The same way you would think about like what we talked about with rock, paper, scissors. Obviously, it wouldn't be 9, might not be 90 billion, but there's some meaningful way to quantify what is the state space of this information security system. Right. And then once you actually have that state space, what is the optimal configuration of that system in real time?
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean?
So hypothetically, a lot better for security teams on defense and possibly offense too, but definitely defense.
Yes, definitely defense, and it's a really tough problem to crack. But I noticed like some of the people doing quantum research or research into like really deep applications of machine learning and AI want to move beyond kind of these narrow use cases like anomaly detection or kind of a neural network on a firewall or that type of thing, and then want to get to the enterprise level capability where they can think about like, hey, what is this overall information system telling me, and how do I protect it in a meaningful way? Yeah. So that's kind of like what that can kind of do. Like I think some of that modeling can actually achieve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for explaining that. I think it seems like we're getting to a point where we have enough data just from logs and everything else.
Exactly.
So it wasn't able to be done before, and now we're not having to necessarily manually collect the data. It's just there, and so it just needs to be sorted through. Is that right?
Exactly? And so that's you're spot on because and going back a little bit technically, because with dynamical systems, typically you've been able to deduce from like mathematic principles to do it, but in this case we don't know what that system is going to look like, or like what the underlying cause and effect of that system is, because we don't really quite understand why humans behave the way they do. But with data, like on all the data that people are producing all the time online, and like on an enterprise network or endpoint or whatever, you do have that data. It's just a matter of collecting it, aggregating it, cleaning it, processing it, putting it in a machine learning model or a bunch of models, and then kind of like having that available for you to understand how those people are going to behave on the network, or how the overall information system is going to actually like evolve over time. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's very cool. That is exciting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I hope. Again, it's,
that's cool.
once you get it, you're like, oh yeah, there we go.
That's cool.
It's like kind of hard to grasp at first, but like then you get it, you're like, oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and then the last question I'll ask you is, and you may not have an answer, which is fine if you don't. Do you have any like 5-10 year goals? Like what do you think you'll do next, or maybe you're not thinking about it because you just want to focus on what you're focusing on now? But if you do, feel free.
I'm not gonna lie. I want to retire soon.
I hear that frequently. People our age are like, "I'm ready to retire."
No. So I'll give some clarity on that a bit for comic effect. But no, really, I'm working in defense, looking in the security space, kind of in the short term. But my heart really is with music. That's where I got started, and that's where I'll end up in the long term. Yeah. So the aim is to sort of get some really good experience. Keep on building my career in a meaningful way, kind of in the security and defense space. But also like I would love to be like a music theory professor someday, like once I'm good enough. and like have like those chops. And yeah, so like eventually like I want to get my PhD in music theory and like teach at the kind of collegiate, like kind of conservatory level in music. So
That's awesome.
I love the mission that I'm in, like with SOCOM and with defense and all these things, but I also feel like music is my true calling in life. So eventually I will pivot back to that. I just need a little bit more time to kind of spend in this space, feel like I've really accomplished my mission in this space, and then kind of transition back into like my where my real heart is, I guess, you know?
Yeah, I totally get that. I think for me, right, it was like I really enjoy art. I had a lot of fun in art school, and it was great. I wanted to kind of do something. I always knew there was something else I wanted to do, and I wanted it to be, impactful in some way. Obviously, like I enjoy talking to people. So, depending on what type of art you're doing, you don't really get an opportunity to do that. It's mostly you and whatever medium you're with. And so, I kind of joked about like eventually I'll get a job where I can support my, art interests because they're expensive and being an artist doesn't necessarily pay off.
I agree. Yeah.
And so, now I'm kind of to the point where I'm like trying to get back into my creative endeavors, and I could definitely just like be a photographer and travel around the country and not have to think about anything else. But also I like having been in cybersecurity for the short amount of time that I have been now, I have like the urge to continue to help people for a while. So I definitely won't be retiring, even if that was physically possible, just because I kind of do want to make that impact, right? And I think you and I both talked earlier about the fact that we like want to genuinely like get to know people and understand why they're doing what they're doing. I feel like helping them, if possible, is another part of that, whether that's, as a friend or business relationship. But, it's one of the things I enjoy and feel like very positive about. So one day maybe I'll just run into you with a camera and you'll be like, Angela, and I'll be like, can I take your picture?
Yeah.
But, one day.
Yeah. To totally relate to all that. And like you've been on a mission since I've known you. And that mission has always had a people element to it. And I've always admired that about you. It's like you like being in this technical space. I don't need to tell you, like, they can be harsh sometimes. People are sometimes unwelcoming, and like you've always provided kind of like a light sort of in this space, and sort of said like we also need to take care of each other as professionals, as people, like as we kind of like our heads down in the weeds all the time, and like not all about like competing and who's the most technical, who can do the most impressive, blah blah blah. But Mr. Robot, I will say the Mr. Robot thing changed my life. I swear to God.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
No, but I will say it's been a real pleasure kind of reconnecting with you, being on the show, of course.
You too.
But yeah, it's always so awesome to connect with you again.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Andrew, for coming. This was an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Yeah, likewise, Angela. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. See ya.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Focal Point Podcast with Angela Marafino. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.